this is Steve Junion. I want to welcome you all to the Design Edge, where we tell you stories from the trenches. Today's guest is Mark McFerron. You know, Mark and I have known each other for over 5 years, and we've worked very closely together in four organizations now? Mark is, first of all, an amazing creative director and visual storyteller. Secondly, he's a great family man, has a terrific wife and kids, and he's a man of faith, and that comes through in the work that he does and how he treats others. And he honestly translates that faith into believing in the good of people. Surely, working with me long enough, and the fact that he still says some nice things about me, I have clearly misled him. But he is very much a believer in the good of people that he knows and that he works with. You know what? The other thing Mark does is he gives me way too much credit and himself not enough credit. You know, Mark is one of those folks who has kind of been put into that creative only bucket. And I think that's a shame. You know, those people that we call the graphics gal or the graphics guy. Honestly, that's not what Mark is. Mark is a visual storyteller, and he has amazing facilitation capabilities as well. I know I've only facilitated a few sessions with Mark, but I came walking away saying, who put baby in the corner? We got to get you up front in the classroom, man. Just because he just had such a dynamic personality, and his 3 decades plus of experience really come through, and he really resonates with participants. You'll hear hopefully a lot of that in the conversation today. But one of the things I wanted to make sure that I tell you about, it'll also be in the show notes, is that Mark is an amazing artist. Like a lot of creative folks out there, he has an outlet, and it's his art. I recommend you check out markmcferron.com to take a look at some of the amazing artwork he's done. At some point in time, I'm going to have to actually reach out to him and see if he can maybe do some work for me based on a couple of ideas I have in mind. Unfortunately, both of us have been a little bit too busy. Anyways, Mark is a really great friend. I can't thank him enough. So thank you, Mark, for being willing to be our first guest. With that, let's get on with our interview.
I'd love to have you introduce yourself in terms of a superpower. I know that sounds kind of weird, but if you think about all the work that you've done in your career in terms of design, whether it be human-centered design or consumer experience, what superpower do you think you developed all over that time?
The superpower is empathy long before I knew empathy had any value, because when you work as a senior designer, art director, creative director, even in leadership roles, one of the problems you have is you've got to know your client, and you have to have great conversations. You get into storytelling, sharing of stories back and forth with the client. You really get embedded with them and feel their aches, their pains, their wins, their joys, their dreams. And to do any kind of really good, successful, creative, whether it's advertising, a strategy, a marketing strategy, even in an innovation, I didn't understand the gift that I was being trained into for almost 20-plus years. And now I look back, it just seems so obvious. I don't know why I didn't see it for myself, but definitely the power of empathy.
That's awesome. So we could call you Captain Empathy, something like that.
Captain E, that'd be nice, yeah.
That would be nice. Well, tell me, what do you think the biggest difference is then having that superpower of empathy, whether it's you or someone else when you're running a workshop or you're designing something? What's so important about empathy from kind of a design perspective?
Well, I mean, you can't design if you don't know your customers. You can pretend you do, and a lot of designers, especially young designers that have graphic design schools and programs, they go into the very elements, the aesthetics of design, are all that's involved with that. It's a, I don't know how to word it. It's when you're designing, I can't design without having at least some sympathy, but I don't have full empathy for my customers, my clients' customers. You just can't put it together, and frankly, it makes the job a lot easier. A lot of sweat, a lot of patience goes into understanding empathy with a customer or the client's customers. It really does. A lot of work goes into it. Incredibly rewarding on the end. It wins for myself, wins for my clients, it wins for the consumers.
Mark, empathy is a really important aspect to the work I do as well. We've worked together, for full disclosure. Mark and I have known each other for about a good 5 or 6 years, good friends and so forth. And I know recently with the Mason group that you guys came up with this kind of crazy cool idea around empathy workouts. Can you talk a little bit about what they are and what your role was in designing the empathy workouts?
Well, I mean, it definitely, power of co-creation, right? And you know a couple of members of our team, Stephen. It just came about. We thought about what can we do to be sort of, and this is my words, not Sean Mason's, any of the others. He may say differently, but it was really how do you fast track and train people to understand some of the elements that are used in design thinking, and whether it's journey mapping, whether it's mind mapping, whether it's even the ethnographic survey and how does that work. Empathy is so important, and it's really truly amazing that a lot of great successful companies don't really know what it is or how to even to incorporate that into a practice. And unfortunately, when you meet other leaders' companies, if you can't explain it in just a minute or less, it's hard to sell them on it. And I give credit to Sean. I think he's the one that came up with the cards, the deck of cards. Now, I've been doing similar deck of cards with Humana that has been very successful, but we didn't dive down as much into the weeds as we did here. And I'm glad we did, because I think this is it really gets people motivated, and they learn about what we're talking about in just a few hours. And how can you sometimes you in the past would use all kinds of media, whether it's online blogs, slide presentations, handouts, materials. This was just had such a good feeling, and I'm talking about the folks we were training with. When we put this out into their hand, they just locked onto it. They latched onto it, and they read the question. And they even questioned the question, why are you asking about, death and things that would be sad, or my incredible happiest moment ever? What does that matter? But as they talk, they understand how the relationship that gets built between the two people, our team and the team we're training. And we're like, well, this is what happens with the consumers. This is why we go into clients to get their people to really connect into their customers. And it's very simple. Michael Harper actually, I think, came up with, I believe he did. Either Michael Harper or Ryan Mulligan came up with, maybe both, the question. We worked so fast and furious on this. We were in Florida. We're traveling like crazy. We'd have a few hours together, and Sean, that's how we do it. We do, crappy first drafts. We practice what we preach. And so let's just put this together. Let's build something with this. And it was like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. We'd been out in the field for almost 11 hours, kind of tired, but sometimes my creativity works best. And,
right.
I kind of joked about how you pump the iron. How do you get people pump the iron, get to a fitness center? And we just kind of mentioned that out loud. And Sean said, hey, do something with dumbbells or something. In my head, I didn't think it was going to work that well. But when I got back in my hotel room, we all went in for the night. I think I had the idea done in 30 minutes, but it took me a long time a couple hours to tweak the design and find something that fit, and matched up with the Mason Group brand on that. But and then Sean and Michael took it to an event and tested on real people. We just dive into it, and you know how it works, Stephen. You've been there before. It's the way we do it. It's simply
Absolutely.
who we are.
And honestly, the end result is phenomenal, and I'll post a couple of pictures on the show notes. But yeah, I think that the power of empathy is important. And as you and I have taught classes before, we've asked classes, can you teach empathy? And the resounding answer is no. You have to experience it. And I think that's what the empathy workout cards do, is it forces you to experience it and walk in someone else's shoes. So I think it's phenomenal. I think the design work and as quickly as you guys put together was pretty phenomenal.
Well, that you actually taught me something. Again, you're never too old to learn anything, right? But we were working with a client there in Philadelphia last summer. You said that to me, and I was like, wow. Back to my what was my you said not my gift, an earlier question.
Superpower.
Superpower. was empathy, but I didn't realize where I was getting the empathy till you had said that I was getting it through experiences. So you really can't teach it. And you're right. I think it's good to highlight that, and that's what you've been good at too with your teams. They are doing it. Sometimes they just don't realize they're doing it. People think, well, I'm not a people person. I'm not, and you don't really have to be a people person necessarily. It makes it easier. But I know some people that wouldn't say 3 words to people walking down the sidewalks, but when they realize the importance of empathy, it's amazing how it changes things for them too.
Absolutely. I fully agree. So that's great. You got a superpower of empathy. You guys, as part of the Nason Group, which is a fantastic team. I'll link to their website as well as some of your sites as well. Have put that out there, and I think it's just phenomenal. So it's coincidence. Just so everybody knows, I did not coach Mark to say empathy as a superpower, right, Mark?
That's correct. That's great.
Okay, good. All right, good. That's it. Well, let's shift a little bit. One of the things I'm trying to do in this podcast is to show people that there's probably not a straight line to the work that we do. Is that a fair statement from your perspective?
Oh, I call it an incredible, scribbly, messy line. Might start, people, conservative people start from the top, left-hand corner and go somewhere. I kind of start in the center, but I go backwards, left, right, up and down. I mean, it's messy, and it's a fun messy. No doubt,
Well, I'd love for you to share a couple of your experiences along the path that really kind of shaped you into the kind of to have the kind of expertise that you have today. Are there a couple of waypoints along your career, and you can name specific organizations, or you don't have to, but some of the experiences that were important and informative for you.
Well, it was important even at Humanity at the time I was working with consumer experience, with Joan Kelly. It was I didn't really, I knew what I was doing in my small little consultant business. I didn't know on a big landscape when you have 40, 50,000 employees that it was going to make what a difference it was going to make. And there's a little bit, I guess, cockiness I had to come on board thinking, why doesn't anyone know this? They should know this. They should know the process. The coaching team should know this. The call centers should know this. IT should know this. I got go on all the segments of the business. And it was a sort of a moment, a profound moment, really, for me to realize only a few people knew this, and there was a great value to be gained on that. And to see, to give Humana credit, they put a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of effort into this, and they still do. And I think that's why they are who they are, and they have the success that they have had. Some of the milestones was the time I joined Shaw Nason, and we helped create the Innovation Center at Xavier University. Great, credible college. Absolutely. I think your son graduated from there. Is that right, Steve?
Yep, just graduated. Absolutely.
Yes, and just fantastic. It was nice to see some really incredibly smart people there that kind of knew some of the elements of the consumer experience, meaning some of what we call tools today to growth. They knew a little bit about maybe some journey mapping, mind mapping, a little bit that, there's these things called ethnographic surveying that's happening, but no one ever put it together in a full, lack of other words for me to say, a toolkit. And It was Sean that said, we need to put something together here at the university to teach others. And I said, well, it's such a squiggly line. It's not linear. It isn't left to right. But we found a way to kind of put it in a cookbook, a little bit of a recipe, a model. Again, we practice what we preach. Our first model was pretty pathetic, probably coming out of the gate. We thought we knew the answers, how to walk into it, how to do this. We, the who, the what, how do you reflect on this, and just one part of the small elements. We kept going back and forth, but that's what's fun about this. That you're allowed to be messy. We teach it for entrepreneurs, fail fast, fail cheap, especially in prototyping and creating new products. We practiced that. We just dove in and made it. And it was, and I think that you had a part of that at one point as a consultant, I believe, walking in with us. Then you create, was it a model for Sean? I do believe. I remember one of the bigger posters that I made to try an educational post showing the interprofessional experience journey, the 5 steps. I thought we used one of the graphics that you did. I can't remember.
The sad but true part is I have probably drawn and written more models, and if you showed it to me, I probably wouldn't remember it if it was back in the Xavier Center for Innovation days, because that's been. Shoot, when were you there? About 3 years ago, Mark? 4 years ago?
Yeah, longer than yeah.
But yeah, I think that was another. You're right. I knew you guys back then as well. I mean, I did some work for the center as well. But after Humana, I think both you and Sean had left for the Center for Innovation over at Xavier, and it was basically a build up from the ground, and it was a very impressive. Got some actual global recognition, and I think Sean ended up speaking over in Dubai, and you were a key part of that transformation. So good on you for that. And I do like what you said earlier on. There is no straight line, right? And some people are going to start in the upper left. I like what you said. You kind of are in the middle and back and forth and back and forth.
It's totally back and forth, yeah. One of the landmarks that really was actually before the Humana thing. I saved it to last because it was a point of great, somewhat struggle. I had very successful. One of my clients was the Kentucky Music Hall of Fame, and was trying to build up a whole new brand identity to those folks. And I made a terrible assumption. They had great success in the area of Kentucky where they started, but I assumed if I'd walked outside of Louisville or whatever, that they would know who they were. They did not. And I created a whole very large fundraising campaign of hundreds and hundreds of branded items. Had to create a new logo, new theme. And it went to, I worked for 16 months and after I realized I should have went and talked to who their customers were. And, I finally figured it out. But, you think that would have been a lesson already. I'd have to wait another 3 or 4 years to get to Humana to figure it out more. But it was a kind of a painful lesson. I thought, this would have made this job so much easier. I'd had more money in my pocket. The consumer would have been happier. The client would have been happier if I just spent some time with several, I say many of their customers. I'd probably would have been going down the street trying to talk to maybe 100 people that knew the Kentucky Music or knew so and have these conversations with them.
Oh, I'm telling you, that's a lesson I learn every time. No matter how quickly in the process I engage with consumers, or in a lot of cases we work with clients and their consumers. Right? It's never early enough, and it's never often enough. It's never frequent enough.
Often enough.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree with you 100%. It's every time when something goes wrong, I'm like, I broke the golden rule in terms of design. I did not really speak to the consumer. Because a lot of us have had a lot of experience, and the smarter we get, the more we think we know, and the more we end up designing the solution without any insights from the consumer. So we both have been in that boat. We won't talk. I appreciate you, by the way, sharing maybe a challenge that you had, or I don't want to call it a failure, because, like you said, we talk about fail fast, fail cheap. It's really about learning.
It's about learning. No, the client never knew that I failed many times along the process. Wasn't sure how to get myself out of it, but I wasn't failing cheap by any means, and that's what hurt.
Yes, your time, their investment. I think you said 16 months initially, and then you're like, oh, you had that deep guttural feeling, like, yeah. I think anybody that hasn't done that hasn't just failed nearly enough, and we can help you with that. Just give us a call, right?
So, right, that's right. That's
and I think people don't know. I mean, you're an artist. I mean, you're a legit artist, and I don't want to say that that's what drove you to this kind of work, but you've been a creative designer, a director. You've had these amazing roles. What do you think about your background really drove you to this work to really help, innovation with organizations innovate, to help design new experiences? I mean, what about your background that lends itself to this?
It was, and Stephen, you really nailed it close, at least. I do consider myself a professional artist of watercolors, classical watercolors. I've been now for beautiful 40-some years. Thank you. And it's again, it kind of goes back to lessons. I look at some of the most successful paintings that I have are the ones that were telling stories about the culture I was painting. And I still couldn't see it. I'd go down another painting or two, and I thought was just going to be the greatest work ever. and never getting responses from it, never sell the work, and like, well, this is beautifully painted. This is interpreting stories to life. Why are you not getting it? And it's because, I really have separated it, from the point. And, in my case as an artist, I love painting portraits, landscapes, the areas that I love: Kentucky, Tennessee, Colorado, Carolinas, Virginia.
Yeah, really nature. And
yes, everything. Yeah. So they do connect, but there's no doubt about it that it's why I went into design. I started at Berea College. I was going to go to med school and try to be a doctor. And at Berea College, ironically, I discovered graphic design. I don't want to tell my age, but this was in the 70s. But nonetheless, late 70s. Okay, so I found out graphic design at Eastern Kentucky University and just fell in love with it. Again, if I'm ever teaching graphic design or even painting anything, how much I'm going to bring the elements of design thinking into this, especially the importance of the subject / consumer, in this case for an artist, to really know who they are. But it's a weird little path. I mean, some people say, well, that seems very logical, but in my head it was not. It was to be, growing up, it was going to become an Air Force pilot. I couldn't fly because I corrected vision. I knew I had the talent. I just loved doing it, but never thought I could take it anywhere. And just was very fortunate to be able to be blessed to, discover graphic design, understand what it was to be really an art director, going into a creative director, learning business, things I did love. I don't think I'm your average creative person by any means. I do love business. I love working with startups. I love anything that's entrepreneur. You name it with startups.
Absolutely.
I love working with groups.
Yeah, and I think that's the best part about our job is we're usually not working with just a client. We're working with multiple clients, which makes it really interesting and exciting.
It does.
Well, and I never knew that you originally went to college to be a doctor. Man, I've known you for years, and I feel like I'll work on that.
It was very fortunate. Berea College was a good school to me. I had a scholarship there. If I went in and qualified for med school, most of that would have been paid. But I discovered this creative thing, this design, and I don't know if I would have made it or not. There's a lot of I admire those that go through the med school programs, but still.
I've known you long. I know you would have made it, but. Hey, you mentioned Humana earlier, and I agree with you. I think they are a leader. They still are. I cut my teeth there in terms of the human-centered design world. I've done a lot of other design that I've talked about incessantly on the previous two podcasts. So that people can listen to those. What other organizations have you been at that really get the consumer, that at least attempt to really understand the consumer and gather insights and incorporate that into new products or solutions? Are there one or more, maybe one or two examples that you have of that?
Examples or clients? I'm not sure.
Clients or even organizations maybe that you just you know of.
I'm afraid one of them that kind of hit home and you were aware of if you were not part of it was working with Healthways before they sold to become ShareCare. Was that coaching process model?
Yes.
I'm trying to recall a lot of it. I did some journey maps with team members there, and I got to focus strictly on that, which I really loved doing. And it was about it was one of the first elements they were trying to do is that it was teaching the members about building relationships. And I thought, well, you're the successful company. You created silver sneakers. How do you not know that? But with successful business, everything changes. It does. The economy changes. Right. The clients, the technology, the innovation, and it was really to see they were trying to grab some. They needed some short-term wins, some goals that they'd could win at. I don't necessarily call it low-hanging fruit or not, but it was really what they were going after. And 3 or 4, 5. Journey maps with the coaches, the leaders. We discovered so many just things that were not going well with us, best practices or models. I'm not sure what you'd call them. The software. I don't know if you recall that. And by the way, let me ask you: were you part of that indirectly, or
yes.
another segment of that?
Yes. I ended up coming in to work with the folks that took that information then and incorporated it into the coaching model, which was a strengths-based model, which was fantastic.
Yes. And it actually is the first time it didn't take a long time to do. They dove into it. That team there, the Hill, I guess, Healthways Innovation Learning Lab, got it done and delivered. And I saw progress happening immediately. Very, very positive outcomes. And it was just a beautiful model. No pun intended there. But for me, it was a beautiful example to show others, to tell others about.
And I think a lot of that started with Sean Slavinsky taking over that division, and Sean Mason, and them saying we're gonna go out, we're gonna talk to our customers, we're gonna talk to the consumers, we're gonna learn from them, we're gonna work with our internal folks, because they placed a high value on the health coaches, which were the folks that were really engaging all of our clients on a day-to-day basis to really try to help them with their health and well-being. And so I think that mindset really helped you in that work that you did in the journey mapping and looking for the pains and gains that our customers were having. And I think you're right. I think they did a great job of maybe moving from knowing their customer to really intimately understanding them and their behaviors, because once you've seen one client, you've seen one client. Each client was different.
That's correct. It was.
And I think knowing that in a B2B organization, a business-to-business organization, was crucial. Yeah. We couldn't treat a trucking organization the same as a restaurant organization. They had different cultures, they have different values, and I remember still, the personas that you all put together, which were phenomenal to help the organization when they were making decisions about clients. To keep that customer mind. So I would agree with you. I worked at Healthways for about a year as well, and it was a fantastic opportunity to really work with an outstanding organization and company, and kind of do some rebuild and do some work as they went and transitioned to ShareCare, as you said. So
yes.
And I know you've been working with a lot of organizations since then. How are you excelling working with these other organizations as it relates to the consumer work you're doing? Where do you feel like you're making an impact?
It's interesting because I'm taking advantage of opportunities in the creative marketing field, the traditional fields, that I could never have taken on before 5-6 years ago. And, I've got to do work for Briova RX. It's a division of Optum. And it really was working kind of slash the IT teams with the marketing teams, creating UI design.
Yeah.
And the first thing I called up to, just because I've got myself trained about that, and was, hey, have you talked to your consumers? Some of this was involved in especially RX clients. They use very expensive medication, and they had not at that point. They were doing it, and was very grateful that I was doing it. And it gave it's like it gave me a bigger badge of honor to that, why I could do better UI design. I don't think I'm really I do really good work. I know I do, but there's a lot of folks out there that does it too. But when I involve consumer experience into this, it separates me from them, and people start to get it. And that was one a very unusual product. It was a rum and an orange liqueur liquor bottles that had to be designed with the packaging. And the creative director had a good idea on that. And she kind of came. This happened out of Jupiter, Florida. Right. And she contacted me because actually my paintings said, man, one of the paintings here we do would really do this. Have you ever done this before? And I said, oh my gosh, I've done prototype 3D modeling. And I said, to be honest with you, I don't do much of that. I hear what your customers are thinking about the packaging. And I just remember that, she just like, it was so exciting. She said, you're right. And that's what I want to talk to a lot more people. And we'll convince your leaders, your executive team, to allow you to put money in to talk to these people before we design one single bottle. I said, if I had to wait another 3 or 4 months, which actually I had to do, and she came back with it's on my website. It's an incredible looking, beautiful bottle. I'm obviously proud of the paintings and the design of the box, because it was input from some of their consumers about many of their consumers, why they would probably buy this, what they wouldn't buy, what they liked in the past. And, we kind of knew the level, how sophisticated we'd make this box, this package, and the label designs, and how, you can go too far with sophistication. You don't look like you're a $5,000 Kentucky bourbon. This is rum and a liqueur. It's got a price range on it. So it was all very important, and it just reinvented the world for me in design as a creative director of marketing.
No, I think that's a great story, Mark. I really do, because I think a couple things there. I think when you were talking to the point person that was over this, and she just was on fire when she heard you say, I don't really want to design something until we talk to more of your customers or potential customers. It really takes, as leadership for this thing to A, take off, and B, to last for more than a day, right?
Correct, yes.
And the other thing is the mindset, because you can have this great idea and this great excitement, but it sounds like she followed through.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. And as far as I tell, I'm relying on what she was telling me, and I knew her leader pretty well. James Ricecle was his name, and James said, we were doing this. We've been doing this. He said, because really we haven't, he said that kind of industry, we're focused on storytelling, the culture, and people, who they really are. And again, I don't know if he always assumed that every other agency it's selling a product out there would be doing the same. And you and I know that is definitely not true. It's getting better.
Yes. Yeah.
It's getting better.
Especially being in Kentucky with bourbon. I mean, there's good old Kentucky bourbon. There are significant differences and passions around it. How about we say that?
Yes, that's very well said. The passions around there, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's the emotional aspect of design that I think, honestly, someone like yourself who does have that artistic background, I think, honestly, is able to tap in a different way than maybe some other people, and I truly believe that. Well, let me ask you this: challenges. You probably don't run into any challenges, I'm sure, but when there are times, and this is where I don't want you to say anything about a company unless you want to make them mad, which is fine, because this is an early podcast, so the odds of them listening are none. But maybe I'll send it to them. But are there what have been your biggest challenges in terms of trying to work with organizations that you've either been a part of or that you've been consulting with to really want to more deeply understand the perspective of the consumer? And how have you overcome some of those challenges? Do you have an example or two that you can think of where, this organization really didn't get it and maybe we missed the mark, that kind of thing?
I think I didn't get to dive to be fair to them, and I don't mind using their name because they're a great company. I worked with Yum Brands when it was Tricon. It was the Taco Bell, KFC, and I'm missing one here.
Long John Silver's and A&W. I am also a Tricon alum, so I don't think we probably knew that about each other. We'll have to talk about that.
And again, this is many years back when, I think the digital age has changed so many things. The challenge was there. I think about some of their products they were doing. Let me back up. Some of the things they were doing to improve their culture. I got to work with a HR group that time, and it was just, it's like what I know now, I could have done so much for them, and they probably could do the same thing. And again, this isn't a negativity gets in. There's a company that still was way ahead of the curve, leaps and bounds compared to the major large organizations like that, and being in a restaurant industry. But, you saw things that come along. They were competitive with McDonald's. Years later, this Chick-fil-A came out of nowhere. Then you had KFC's kind of floundering a little bit in the sales, but, doing great in China and other markets. Then you have all these other Cane's chicken fast food coming out. Like, why are they coming up? Why is Chick-fil-A growing so big? I know you know the answer. If I ask you, what do you think the one thing that they were doing different at their restaurants that maybe Tricon took, or then, again, I like to call it Tricon because that's when I was doing the work for them then before Yum Brands.
Sure.
What were they doing?
To me, it's all about the experience. I mean, if you walk into a KFC today, and I worked at a KFC for 3 months when I was an executive over there, and I loved it. I grew up in the quick service restaurant business, and there is a significant difference when you walk into a KFC in terms of the experience and you walk into a Chick-fil-A. It's just huge.
It's just huge. It's huge. And, I think if anybody's listening to this podcast now, this day and age, gets it. I ate at Chick-fil-A today. My client I ate today 2 hours ago. And we went there. We were driving by all these fast food, and there's a lot we do like, and we do go eat at the others. But there was just something about my son was riding the truck. He said, "I just like the way they treat me." My 19-year-old son said that. He guess he's the future buyer 20, 30 years from now. He and his family. And it won't be me, but I just think that's interesting. But it was always a challenge. I felt the pain of the HR trying to. Some companies don't understand the power of using the design sprints. What's some good examples, Steve, that to change their culture, internally? In fact, when you designed the consumer-centered framework, the innovation framework that has the culture, leadership, and mindset, right?
Yeah. And then I remember the first drawings are from like February of 2017 because we were trying to make sense of it after our Healthways days, and I saw the picture of a yellow legal pad piece of paper with a triangle on it. It was brutal, but that's why we call them SFDs or shitty first drafts. So
that's correct.
I think you're right. I don't know why some cultures get it and some don't, but this is kind of the wrap up to this section. How do you think leadership mindset and culture play into the work you do? I mean, how does it help? How does it impact it?
Wow. You know what? I'm at Sean Nason about, half an hour ago sent me an interesting text. It's a quote. And this is where some of the leadership fails. It's a very simple quote. I don't know. He doesn't give credit who it is. He just said, he sent this to me. He said, this hits home today. And I know Sean doesn't mind me sharing this. It's one sentence. What you risk reveals what you value. And I think there's times that some leadership, some companies don't realize what why they're supposed to be in the role they are to make their company grows with their products and services. And I don't think they're really out there. They don't understand how to navigate risk. You and I know you can do the real risk-taking things, and it sounds an oxymoron here, and not be so risky. But some do not do risk at all. They're risk averse. They want near it. No, let's do conventional marketing. Let's just send out a ton of social media, print media. Wow, we're not for our $100 million we spent, we only made $12 million back. But John Doe's company over spent $30 million and got $25 million back. What do we do different? What's wrong? And I think they just don't. That really hit me when he sent that to me earlier, and I'm like, wow. What you risk reveals what you value.
Let me ask you this. I mean, we have worked in companies together and separately at a couple different companies that we've worked at. People feel like it is such a huge risk to go out and even talk to their consumers.
Oh, absolutely. And thank you. This is where you're so good at. You're gifted those obvious insights. Sometimes I'm just assuming everybody knows.
Well, you and I have experienced it, right? We put them on the street to go to talk to just consumers in general, and they're terrified.
They think they're going to have a heart attack. They can't have a conversation. They can't just. I'm like, well, you do it every day when you go out in your regular life when you're not on the job. You meet people on the sidewalks. You talk to them. Yes. It's just So if you could imagine if you got a company as big as Humana and you got say 20,000 out of 45,000 people are thinking this way. What a difference it makes when they realize they can do this.
Yeah. Well, and let me shift. So let's go to Mark's toolbox because I know you have expertise in a number of different things, and now I'm going to ask you to pick one. One process, one tool, methodology that you like to use to get to better know the consumer. Now, I think I know it is, but you've already surprised me, even though we've known each other. But
Yeah.
what's your favorite tool? If you had to pick a tool out to really help an organization understand the consumer, what's one of your go-to that you feel is reliable and that paints a good picture?
And I've got kind of an A and B answer to that. And you definitely know the A answer to that, no doubt. I fell in love with what I call true journey mapping. Yes, real journey mapping. Journey mapping, really, it's following the emotional process of a consumer along the path of a segment of the business or your company, how they buy a product or products. I just find tons about that. And the reason I say there's B, because that's A, because the one leads into the other one. I really find value in co-creation, especially with my clients. And it is a struggle to make them understand they can be creative. I try to make them clear that I'm called a creative director for the last 20 years of my life. I honestly don't think I'm that best of a creative director. I'm a very artistic director. I'm really good and creative on meaning coming up with just the most brilliant ideas. What I'm good at is finding the people that come up with the brilliant ideas, and it makes me look good. It makes them look good. But you have to do that when you dive in, co-creation. Really, how do you co-create together? And the first thing, Stephen, again, another podcast for you here, but so many people think they just mean. I bet 7 out of 10 people say, "Well, no, I can't do that. I can't co-create. I can't come up, set in a meeting with a group of people in a business, in the insurance or healthcare, or Netflix, trying to figure out what's the next move to make. What could I do different?" And they don't realize how much fun it can be doing it. And I win clients, I think, over when I do the latter part. The first part is for me to figure out their clients, to see where they're going. The second part is really, getting. I just did it today. I'm designing a website for. I can tell you who it is. It's a fairly large dentist group in Kentucky, Louisville, Kentucky, and they the website they had for it. It served its purpose. It's probably 10 years old. It's well designed at the time, but now it's really, they believe it's just clunky. It's hard to navigate through, and when I was working with actually, it was Hero assisting the dentist. Well, I'm trying to think of her title. I apologize.
That's okay.
Hygienist. She was saying, she knew because she'd been talking to them. She knew. They said, well, most of them are return customers, and they want to be able to go in and log into their private account and get to it quick. And the new folks that's come to visit need to see the offerings really fast and furious and be encouraged. Don't feel threatened. Their old site was a lot of reds, dark reds all over the place. And I thought, well, hey, listen, this is, you want to go to a dentist's website that's red? That means pain, anger.
No.
Let's clean this up. Let's make it a very soft site.
Yes.
Hardly any color.
Less power tie and more kind of I'm going to the beach kind of vibe.
Yes. So, but did that answer your question? I definitely journey mapping, no doubt.
It absolutely did. And I would have put money on journey mapping. Co-creation, I think it is. It's a way. It includes a process and methodology. I mean, there's so many different ways. You're right. But it's just a way of being too, and I really appreciate you saying that, because I would never have guessed that co-creation. Would have been kind of the B option.
Yeah, and you're right. It is a way. It's definitely a process. It's an engaging process. And I know, I love giving credit because it's such a great book. Tim Ogilvy, Designing for Growth for Managers. He's got a great chapter about co-creation. He really explains it well. And how you can put it how you can use it for strategy, how you put it in the marketplace, how it can affect ROI. It doesn't go into great detail.
That's a great. Who's that author? And what was that book again, Mark?
Tim Ogilvy, Ogilvie. Hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, not butchering it up. The book is called Designing for Growth, but it's a design thinking toolkit for managers. And it's printed by Columbia Business School.
What I'll do is I'll look it up and put a link to it in the show notes, because that's one. I mean, I feel like I've heard of everything, but then there you go. There's a book that I need to go listen to or get. I'm an Audible fan, so I usually listen before I buy. or a public library kind of guy. But yeah, I'll have to check that one out.
And you'll love it. Page 1 design, or chapter 1, why design, the first page. I think technically it's design. It's page 3 in the book. It says why design. He's got a little graphic there. It shows a question mark on one side and a little black line. As the black line goes over in the middle of the page, it's just a huge squiggly. It looks like a squashed bug.
Oh, I do know that. Yeah.
And it comes out on the other side as a dollar sign. I'm like, there's what earlier. There's nothing linear about it. He just they nailed it in this book. Yeah. So he was a co-author.
Yeah, we don't do this. We don't do this kind of work just to really, be soft and fuzzy. It is about being informed by the consumer, but ultimately it's about having business impact. And if that business has more impact, which means they're bringing in more revenue, they're more profitable, or because they're providing the level or the type of services and products, that means they can continue that investment, and we get better experiences, right? And you mentioned one like Netflix, and just funny, over the weekend I heard Netflix was testing, I think in Italy, another level of subscription services, which means our subscription prices are probably going to go up, and B, these guys are masters, especially technology. These guys are masters in terms of A/B testing and really engaging their consumers. It is phenomenal. And a lot of people talk about the usual suspects, the Disneys, the Marriotts, the Amazon, and Netflix. They've got it down. So, what advice would you give to someone who's thinking about starting in this type of career, the work that you do?
Oh, wow. I have a lot of people. Just had a young girl. She's not young. She's finished her master's degree. She went to work for a healthcare company in Nashville. Said she wants to learn to do it all that. I told her I read the book Designing for Growth. I think that's a great start. It's a good little Bible that tells what it's all about. It defines it a little bit. But basically, doesn't it sound corny, Steve, to try to tell people practice it? Start practicing so you can preach it now. Learn empathy, learn what storytelling is about, learn the elements of what journey mapping, empathy mapping is about. You don't have to be a pro at any of these to be successful at it. That's the beauty. Learn about brainstorming, learn about co-creation, learn about those elements that's really truly designing for growth. That's where I have to start. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you have to go out and do it. No, I mean, I think I'm in violent agreement, because if you don't go out, if you don't have the mindset that you're going to struggle, and I think, again, in one of the 2 introductory podcasts, I talk about my fail count for the day. You're never going to be 100% right initially, and you could wait 18 months to be 100% right, but your customer or your consumer has moved on, and there's someone else's customer. What we talk about is real quick iterations. A couple week cycles.
That's right.
Really driving forward. And if you don't roll up your sleeves and intend to push the boundaries, which some of the people we've talked about have really pushed the boundaries, you're not going to learn. And yes, there's good old learning from a book, but I think Mark Twain had said, "Don't let your schooling get in the way of your education," or something like that. It might have been, "Don't let your education get in the way of your schooling." And basically what he was saying is books are great, and school is great, and college is important, but you can learn just as much just on your own as well, and with other people. So
that's right. Yes, and if people really do come back to me and say, "Hey, we're doing this. What's the next step?" There's another book they made, same authors, I believe, for Designing for Growth. I don't have it in front of me. It is called Designing for Growth, field book, and it's a really good book, and it's a step-by-step project guide. It helps people put a little bit of perspective. As much as creative I am, I still like a little bit left to right. I like to be linear. Especially when people paying me to consult with them, that I have deliverables to them to help improve their ROI. I like a guide. I still do.
Right.
It's my security blanket. I'll confess that right now. So absolutely.
Right. Is there anything else you'd like to say about the type of work that you do, your career, your profession, kind of anything you'd like to say just in general about this type of work?
I want to. The thing I would try to stress to the creatives that are listening out there, whether you're songwriters, novelists, historians, this overlaps all these incredible talents. Whether you're a painter, an artist, sculptor, welder, I'm trying to think of other people, really the careers that are out there. Learning designing for growth will help you yourself. If you want to grow your own business, especially somebody tells me, hey, I really want my own business. You really want to be an entrepreneur? You want to do this? We put the risk out there. That's I would have given anything in the world that I knew this in the early 80s. I really wished I knew this. It just would have made things so much easier. I would have felt like I would have had a better plan. I'm not afraid of challenges. I guess sometimes I'm afraid of the failure. Does that make sense? I'm not afraid of those challenges.
Oh, yeah.
I'll work hard. I'll do it. But I am afraid of the failure. Who isn't? And
we talk about it a little bit cavalier, but you and I both know we'd rather be successful than fail. But I think our experience, or not but, and, right, no buts in the room. And I think and I think that the more and more experience you have, the likelihood of failure actually gets reduced over time.
All right, so thanks so much to Mark McFerron for all of his infinite wisdom. It's funny, I've known Mark for 5 years, and I learned a lot about him that I didn't know in this podcast. Big thanks also to Seth Junion for producing this, editing it, and being the chief motivator in our organization. Really appreciate his support as we go through this. Thank you for listening. Seth and I talked. We know we can put out better quality over time in terms of the quality of the podcast. Mark's content and his insights were great. We'll continue to work on the quality, and until next time, thanks so much, and